But then after that, it like very quickly went downhill.
Oh no.
Yeah, so because of that, I felt like I was, yes, hands. So we set out to study Loish's art.
And to no one's surprise, we quickly realized it wasn't going to be easy.
Hey, I'm Ben.
And I'm Abby.
And we draw together because art is better with friends.
So it wasn't as easy as we thought it would be.
So we broke it down into steps: sketching, painting, and of course, trying our hand at some original artwork at the end with everything that we learned along the way.
Starting with sketching, one of the things that I really like about Loish's artwork is how loose and flowy her sketches are. I think that's what a lot of people are drawn to.
Absolutely.
But what you might find is that when you go to create loose sketches, you end up more with a messy sketch.
It's always so hard for me to find that balance between creating a beautiful flowy line, but also making sure that it's like going where it should be.
I tend to like to draw an arm, and then a leg, and then oh no, my arm is as big as the leg because I didn't map it out beforehand.
Oh my gosh, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
So here are some of our sketches that we worked on. I started off doing some like little portrait sketches, and Abby was doing some gestural stuff. I think that yours initially, it actually looks amazing.
Oh well.
That actually looks really good, but it doesn't feel like Loish's stuff.
No, I guess you could argue that these are more of a warm-up, iterative approach, trying to stay loose, but also recognizing that this is just getting my feet wet for the day. Mm-hmm. I love what you're doing over here with actual Loish artworks.
I feel like I came out of the gate really strong with my first kind of study, my sketch study, but then after that, it like very quickly went downhill.
Oh no.
Yeah, so because of that, I felt like I was, yes, hands. So I moved on to doing some hand studies. You moved on to some portrait studies, which turned out incredible. My hands were like a mixed bag.
That's what this is. My copies are also a mixed bag. These were very quick little mock-up sketches of some beautiful portraits she had done. I figure even if I don't know what I'm trying to copy in that moment, maybe I'll recognize it as I begin.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's always so hard about doing studies is that when you're in the middle of doing the study, it feels like you're not necessarily learning anything at all. And it feels like not until the end and then you look back that you really see the changes. So we really had to kind of push through the early stages, the growing pains, if you will.
It can be discouraging in that moment to look at what you're doing and saying, wow, I barely hung on for my life to just create these little sketches of her very nicely finished and rendered portraits. It feels like there's such a long way to go.
Those all looked incredible. Like, it genuinely looked amazing.
Thank you. Your hands look awesome.
So we came away with like 3 or 4 kind of major takeaways for her sketches. And I feel like we kind of distilled those in a pretty good way. Like, let's talk about the flow of her art. Like, I feel like flow is a term that's just like thrown around so willy-nilly.
So flowily. Yes, but it is nonetheless a term often used to describe art like hers.
Yeah. I feel like I discovered a big brain moment. I feel like I had a secret discovery where I came up with origin points because that's the only thing that like really came to mind. So I noticed she had all these converging lines. I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but she has like all these flowy lines, right? And you're looking at them, you're like, oh, those are really flowy and beautiful. But all these flowy lines, they stop. But if you kind of like trace them and follow them, they all like connect somewhere off in the distance. So I feel like I unlocked like this secret where I was like, oh my gosh, I think I've solved it. I've solved Loish's art.
So the flowy contour line she uses, because people talk about those contour lines where it's like a random line that you
Even
don't
those
see
connect.
on a form. Yeah, that like go along the form. Those all seem to connect back to a similar point of origin.
Trace them, you'll see.
Yeah,
See
you
for
might
yourself.
not see where they converge, but if you traced them out, they would converge. Oh, very interesting. Very cool.
Another one that I noticed, and line weight is something that I've been getting into more and more. I feel like line weight is not a beginner level thing. It is something that you have to just learn through, a long period of making really bad drawings with all the same exact line thickness.
Yeah.
So I noticed that she doesn't do a ton with line weight, but she saves her thicker line weight for overlaps. And I noticed that when I was working on my hands.
So for overlap. So what do you mean by that?
Oh, an overlap would be if in a drawing you had like your hand or something in front of another thing, that would be considered one object overlapping another object. So it would have thicker lines around it to indicate that it's overlapping.
Yeah. And that makes sense then, because I've noticed that when she's drawing like legs that are bent a little bit with the knee, I thought that maybe her lines were thicker at the knees and elbows because, those are like prominent things, but those are also areas of overlap depending on the angle you're looking at from, where your thigh is a bit behind your calf when we're looking at it from that angle.
Exactly.
Your forearm is a bit ahead of your upper arm, and so we see a little bit more of a thicker line weight here at the elbow. Very cool observation.
And then the last one to just kind of finish the circle with lines is that her lines become a part of her paintings.
Oh yes, I did know that one.
You knew this before going in.
We've read her art books. We have her art books.
This is true.
And she writes in her art books about how she used to usually do the step of like doing a sketch and then doing another pass that's inking out the whole sketch or doing the line art.
Right.
She often skips that phase now, she says. But
I skip that phase now. Line art's not for me.
I know. I'm like, I'll do it sometimes, but I don't know. But she'll recolor the sketch lines. She leaves them in. Maybe she'll erase some of them out. But they're a very intentional part of her work a lot of the time now, which I think is very cool. Really imparts a lot of the original energy that only a sketch sometimes can seem to capture.
Yes. So she does that by recoloring her lines, and then she'll use some kind of blending mode on the lines, typically multiply from what I understand. So then she, combines that with her painting, which is a good lead-in because now it's time to talk about painting.
Sketches, I kind of get. Lines, I jive with because that's always been...
Lines have never been my thing.
The
Lines
thing
are your town.
So when I look at her color, when I look up one piece of Loish artwork, I immediately feel like overwhelmed at the idea of trying to distill and use that information. It's just so good. And, she's got like 2 decades or more of experience.
Quite a lot of experience, yeah. So let's look at our first attempts here.
Yes.
So I directly copied one, and you can tell, I will say I wasn't going for accuracy, but I was going for accuracy in terms of color. So I wasn't super happy with how the painting turned out, but I was really happy with the colors, and I was really happy with what I learned from doing this. But I found this to be pretty challenging.
It looks challenging. I see that you've used like a lot of neutral tones with one accent color, and I think that's very much what you see from her is a lot of neutrals and then maybe a pop of accent color, but it's not like the whole background is that color.
Yeah, it's not like overused. It's not super blown out and saturated.
Yeah, it gives it that kind of soft quality. I would not call this a serious attempt. This was just more of a warm-up sketch still, and it's trying to feel out flowy lines done quickly. I'm using a reference from Earth's World, so I wasn't even copying from a Loish artwork.
But we weren't, super worried about these turning out amazing, because the whole point of doing a master's study is not to create this immaculate, beautiful artwork. It's to study, it's to learn, it's to grow as an artist.
Yeah.
So from these, we actually ended up, even though these aren't amazing, we ended up learning a lot from doing these. And we have another 3 or 4 cool little takeaways. So I think obviously she uses a lot of like neutral kind of, you said earthy tones, I think earlier.
Yes, and something else that she does, and she talks about this in her reels, is she limits her color range and values. I think this is something that a lot of artists who study color theory will try to impart. It's not necessarily a beginner concept where they're like, what's your color palette?
Yeah.
And they put a lot of thought and energy into saying, oh, here's my color palette, and it's like 5 colors. And you're like, how do you limit yourself? But the effect is so awesome where it's something that feels more traditional to look at.
Yeah.
And then if you do have an accent color, it just really pops.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I'm just now starting to figure this out more, where I am using such a large spectrum of values from all the way pure white to pure black, and the more I study other artists, they're just like, wait.
They're really narrowing that range. It's really always nice to put that into words too.
The other thing I learned from doing these paint studies was that she uses contour shapes. And contour shapes, I feel like, are this new harebrained 2024 idea.
Contour shapes.
So in the past, we've used contour lines. You look at Line Decker, there should have been a shape decker is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because it's the new thing.
It is. It's not just seamlessly blending like some great Renaissance artist. It's clear distinctions between different areas where it's not perfectly blended into each other, but it still feels pretty seamless and intentional.
It's amazing, and it's something that I feel like I want to study even more because I'm just now starting to kind of see and recognize it. It's stuff that I feel like I've kind of done a little subconsciously, but I wanna learn more about and hit a little harder. Also, just as a throw on here at the end, her silhouettes are gorgeous.
Yes. I think she does a lot with her work that almost defies gravity. I was looking at her artwork earlier today, and she had a character like wearing big billowy sleeves. And instead of the sleeves hanging off of the arms, they floated above the arm, like the big opening, like a wizard, but in reverse up here. And I was
like, reverse wizard, yes.
There it is. And then I started looking and seeing it more and more. Her shapes, her characters, her hair, they're all like they've just jumped in the air and haven't fallen yet.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes. I think you've nailed it. That is her art style.
They're all in zero gravity.
So after we studied some paintings, we were feeling a little confident, We were like, all right, time for us to try our hand at some original artwork. So bam, we did it.
There it is.
And it was, I feel like I was happy with how this turned out, but I feel like it wasn't quite there.
Yeah, and for me, I'll be honest, this wasn't super much an attempt at an original artwork. This is still kind of, I don't know, I still felt like I was studying more than I was practicing, and I'm still in a warm-up phase.
Oh, yeah, I feel exactly the same.
Yours looks awesome.
I mean, yours looks awesome. Are you kidding me?
No, yours looks so good. Yours actually has the concepts we've just been talking about, and mine is like, no, I'm just going to ignore everything we just talked about for a minute.
No, not at all. Like, I can see, like, these flowy shapes in the sleeve that you're creating. You got some really cool stuff going on with your lines. The shading on that, like the lighting, is actually incredible.
Thank you. Yes.
So for me in particular, I was like, where did I go wrong with mine? I was like, I feel like I rushed my lines in my sketch. So I took a step back, went back to lines for a minute, and tried doing one again, and that's where I came up with this, which I did kind of like the sketch on. I was pretty happy with that. And then, after doing that, I came back in and went for my final attempt, as well as yours here, which looks absolutely amazing.
Yours looks awesome.
These both, I think, I'm pretty happy with.
So what I see here is that I see the elements of Loish's work in yours, where you've got those different colored shapes, delineating like turns in form, and yours, true to your art style, which I've seen echoed now for a very long time, is those shapes are very clean edges, very, very clean. And that is so cool because I think that's like taking what you've learned from her work, but it's still very much your style.
Oh yeah, for sure. I will say, at least for me, I don't know if you can speak to this, but I was never attempting to go for a one-to-one exactly of her work. I think that's more of what we would call a master copy rather than a master study. Here we're more like, let's study this and steal all the cool elements that we love and try to pull that into our own art, which you did an amazing job of.
Thank you.
I love the limited color palette and even the spark of color. That little bit of yellow that you have in there is not like, it's not overbearing. It's like just the perfect amount.
I liked how this turned out. I particularly enjoyed working on the hand in this piece. Nothing turned out perfectly, right? And
I could say the same myself.
True to my persistent style and nature, my skin tones definitely turned out a little bit more muddy.
Oh, I don't think so at all. I think your skin looks beautiful. You did such a good job on that.
Thank you.
Like the blending of the different shapes on the face, it doesn't look muddy.
For me, this is, and if you look back at my old works, you'll know this is better than what I've done in the past.
I think we both have leveled up a lot from this master study in a really good way.
I agree. I think, we're carrying so much that we learned into our current level of expertise. You know, it's not like, oh, we studied Loish for a week and we can draw like Loish now. That was never the outcome
I
to
wish,
expect.
but...
I know, wouldn't it be cool if you just studied an artist for a week and then you absorbed all of their secrets? And,
Only if.
Yes.
I feel like we absorbed a lot of secrets, but now we have to take those secrets and we gotta practice them.
Yes. And that is where it really comes in. It's one thing to just study your work. It is so another to consistently get the time in and practice.
And if you want more art secrets yourself, click that subscribe button and check out the Brush Club at the link below in the description. We actually use one of the brush packs for this very art study. So we use the Candy Shop brush pack, and I personally use the Lollipop brush a lot.
I love the Lollipop brush. It actually really lends itself well to a Loish study.
You use the butterscotch texture a lot.
I was obsessed with the butterscotch texture.
It looks really good.
I almost wanted to put it across the whole artwork when I first used it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so dreamy.
Yeah.
Toffee was really cool. Like this is a really good brush pack that really inspired me to experiment with different patterns and textures. I think this was a great creation.
That's the whole point, is to get inspired, to experiment and try new things. So if you want that, check it out, link below. And this is the part where we say
goodbye.
Goomba.
Benjamin.
Abijamon.
You can't call me that anymore.
Not after
the
incident.
Enough said. It was our wedding day. No, it wasn't.
Well, yes, we were married, and of course you had to take upon my name. That's how it works.
That is how it works, and you had to take upon mine, which is why we call you Babby now.